Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing great. Little intro music here to get us into the holiday vibe. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing well. Thanks for inviting me, Thomas.
How are
Great
you,
to be here.
Amanda? Oh, sorry.
Good holiday season joining you guys.
Yes. Can you tell us where you are tuning in from? Where you from? How are you feeling today? Share how you are in the chat here. Hi, Martin. Hi, Murray. Sup, Brenton? I'm doing great. It's a sunny day here in Montreal. Hi, Laura. Howdy. Hi, everyone. All right. Gonna plug back my AirPods. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear me well? Matt, can you try to speak just to see
Yep.
if it works?
Testing.
Okay, perfect. Super excited to have you both here. I must say, we had some technical issues until 2 minutes ago. So it's awesome. We're here today. And welcome to webinar 2 of Hoppier's holiday series. So the first webinar was about the 5 best event tech vendors for a magical virtual holiday party. And the next logical step of hosting an awesome Christmas or holiday party is, well, getting your budget approved, getting your ideas approved. And sometimes, depending on who you have in front of you, it can be a little bit tough. So I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Thomas Paris. I'm the Director of Marketing at Hoppier. We help event planners to provide food, drinks, and amazing gifts to virtual attendees anywhere in the world with digital smart credit cards. We'll talk about that at the end because I have a gift for you if you stay until the end. I have a really cool gift that I'm going to offer to everyone who has shown up today. So, but first, I want to know more about our two guests, Matt and Amanda. Can you please introduce yourselves and please add one small piece of information that not that many people know about you, please. So I'm going to start with Amanda.
Good morning and happy early holiday. My name is Amanda. I'm the founder and CEO of Innovate Marketing Group. We're a full service event agency. We're based in Los Angeles. We do mainly corporate events. So definitely there's talks in the office about snowflakes, jingle bells, and the holiday. We're already, we've been in that zone kind of since August. So happy to be here today. And I'm also very involved in the community. I sit on various boards. I've been in the event industry for 15 plus years, and I still love it. Something that not a lot of people know about me is that I've traveled to over 30 countries. So I can't wait till the pandemic is over so that I could get back and racking up that number. So.
I must ask then, have you ever been to Belgium?
I have, and I love it. The chocolate and the beer. Mostly the chocolate. So it's a beautiful place, Thomas.
Yes. If you ever come to Belgium, I'm in Montreal. I've been to. That's amazing. I'm now in Montreal, but I'm originally from Belgium, and definitely beer and chocolate are the two things that you want to taste if you ever cross this beautiful country. Awesome. Well, great to have you today, Amanda. Matt, what's up?
Awesome. Hi, everyone. Again, like Amanda said, happy early holidays. So excited to be here. My name is Matt Chu. My pronouns are he and him, and I am glad to be here representing Strava, the social network for athletes and really the record of the world's athletic activities, just helping people around the world find their personal best and connecting them to what motivates them is really kind of our business. Right now, our most popular sports are running and cycling, but really to us, if you sweat, you're an athlete, and we really invite everyone to join our global community. In my role at Strava, I am a people experience specialist. So really under my umbrella, I get to cover a lot of the support of our employees and our culture, really the quality of experience someone receives being a member of Team Strava. These are things like onboarding, event planning, communications, swag and gear, operations, you name it. Really just kind of have my hands in a lot. And as we speed towards the end of the year, we are getting into holiday planning. So just excited to have this conversation with everyone. And something not a lot of people know about me is I am quickly developing a love of home cooking through the pandemic. Just a nice hobby I've picked up, and it's a fun activity. Yeah. Oh, and a last thing I'll add about Strava is as the pandemic has gone on, we are now largely a distributed, remote, virtual company. We do have some office hubs, but still largely virtual, which I think is going to be relevant to today.
That is awesome. First of all, I'm a big fan of Strava. And I think if there is one app that you need to use before the holiday season to, being able to eat whatever you want. So I think that's the best app before the holiday season and after the holiday season to lose that extra weight that you gain from eating and drinking too much. One quick thing. So Andrea is saying that she can't hear us. Can everybody else hear us? Is there any connectivity issue here? Can you tell us in the chat if I can hear? Amazing. Yep. Awesome. All right. Perfect. So sorry that you can't hear us. It might be something with your computer. All right. So first question is actually going to be to our audience today. I would love to know. Share. So go in the poll section. So you have chat, polls, handout. Go to the poll. I would love to know how far you are in your virtual holiday planning. So are you still brainstorming in terms of ideas of vendors, or activities, experiences that you want to launch, or are you a little bit further down the road and discussing with, event tech vendors or cool platforms or whatever to make it more fun, or you're absolutely done and you are an event champion who plans things in advance? All right, so lots of you are in the brainstorming phase, which makes sense. And a few people are already talking with vendors, which also makes sense. So,
oh no, I can hear him still.
Oh, you can still hear? Oh, that's so weird. I cannot hear.
You cannot hear me, Amanda? Okay. Can you hear me,
I can
Matt?
hear you.
Awesome.
But is Thomas talking or he froze? Because on my
Thomas
end,
is.
he is. Oh, so weird.
Everyone is seeing
that is so weird.
One of the complications or one of the things we deal with in virtual events.
Yes, definitely.
That's the thing.
Okay, I think it's best you answer the question. I'll answer after you. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. Can you tell Amanda to refresh her?
Yeah. Maybe just refresh the page. We had to do that a couple of times before.
That's so weird. All right. Well, Matt, I'm going to start with you. So I want to know more about what you've planned for this. Oh, here we are. Amazing. That is so funny. All right. So, Matt, let's start with you. I would love to know more about what you've planned for Strava's virtual holiday party so far. I'm sure that there will be changes, but if there are any cool ideas or vendors or platforms or just experiences in general that you have already planned for this year's party, or even from last year that you think are interesting to talk about, I think we would love to know more about that.
Totally. And I'm going to start by saying I empathize with many of you in the polls here in that brainstorming phase and discussing with vendors. That's very much where we are at this process still. And without getting too far into specifics, in case any Strava employees are out there listening and not wanting to give away any big reveals, but just, yeah, in terms of things that we've planned for this year's holiday party and doing one last year in this virtual setup, things that have found successful are gift distributions across all of our locations and meeting employees where they are. We've used a vendor called GemNote. They're based in the Bay Area. That's where we're headquartered as well. So it's just been kind of a good physical relationship, geographical there. And then we've had success too with just light virtual celebrations that focus on really camaraderie and connecting people, whether these are in-house things that our people team kind of tries to curate and put together, or through partner services. I know in the first webinar, Hoppier discussed Weave as kind of a virtual game show event. We're actively looking at that. We've done virtual escape rooms. We've used Zoom before in place of our weekly all hands meeting where everyone in our company joins. We've kind of done it as a breakout room, get to know you icebreaker questions, just kind of giving employees time, not necessarily additional time in their schedule, but carving out time that already exists for them to connect and just kind of turn their heads away from work in the spirit of celebration and connecting.
Awesome. Yeah, Wave is a really cool platform. Check it out. It's actually part of the Go Game, which is a company hosting virtual games, but they have their own platform now with Weave. So Weave is a really cool like tech environment, online environment where you can host a lot of cool games online with your remote team. Cool. Well, same question to you, Amanda, but in your case, as an external event provider, what are some of the cool ideas or experiences that you have planned last year with your clients or that you are planning this year? Anything that stands out?
Sure. Last year we did for a lot of corporation, we noticed that everybody was kind of, hoping the pandemic will be over. So it was kind of like, okay, let's talk in September. Let's talk in October. Let's talk. And then by November, it's like this panic. Everybody is calling the agency like, we want to do events. And they are not just requesting for one. Like one of our clients did 30. They booked 30 events with us. So it went from 0 to 30. And that was happening with a lot of clients because their senior management then was asking HR or culture team, like, what are we doing this year? And they're like, oh, I thought we didn't have budget, but then they realized how important it is because everybody was at home. It's actually even more important, right? Because everybody's separated, so that to have that event, so everybody's connected. So we did a series we also did some games just like Matt, so like Family Feud, scavenger hunt, because we wanted people get up and running, and Pictionary. You thought Pictionary in person was hard? Wait till you see the digital version. But it was so funny what people draw. Like it was just hilarious. We also did like Jeopardy. And then but in addition to that, this year we kind of expanded beyond, I think those games are still very popular. But in addition to that, we're doing like cocktail and comedy, like mixing a little bit different variation. We recently just finished a Lego event, and one that we do that's very popular is like boba making. So we actually make boba with the team, and just like Matt, we also send out kits. So one of our clients TikTok, and we send out all these goodies. So it arrives at their door, and then you notice like this is actually an apron because we want people to like wear it so that when we take a group photo, even if you don't know, you forgot why you're here, you're like, oh, it's for TikTok. And then we send everybody the photo afterwards. So it's always coming up with ideas. This year, we're looking at charcuterie board experience that we have already built out. That's very popular among a lot of our clients. And then we also have done like even flower arrangements. So if their company is more woman oriented, so normally we'll look at the demographics. That's very important. And then if like we also work with a lot of tech companies, right? They tend to be a little bit younger. So we don't want to give them things that are like for the older group. So we always kind of start with that. But yeah, sky's the limit. I think it's so fun. Just like in-person event, you really can branch out and be very creative.
We talked, Amanda, you told me about an experience with Lego. No? Is that something that you are planning this year? I thought that was so cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so that really started with our internal culture team that we did here, right? So our whole mission, our agency is to help fuel brands to change lives for the better. And we do that even internally. I think it starts with here. So we did it with our team, and our team was having so much fun. One of our team member, and we were all remote at this time. So we sent out kits to everybody, which has a Lego set, and then we build out competition. And it was super fun. And we told people, because they were home and their kids were home, we're like, they could also participate. And we're like, please just don't let the 6-year-old beat us, that's at least one of us need to be him, But it was really fun, and it turned out, it wasn't intended to be a client product, but because it was so successful, we eventually packaged it, and then we just finished it with Facebook. So that was one of the events that we just did with them, and then that was more towards the end of summer. So the Lego that they built was an RV camper because of pandemic, right? So many people are doing RV, and we just always trying to keep that in mind. So it's very intentional in terms of our messaging, in terms of like even the Legos they build, right? And we were even thinking like, oh, maybe we should print out these like little stickers so they could put like Facebook on the camper.
That is so cool.
So, yeah.
Another question for the audience, actually, before I ask you another question. Can you, I think all the event attendees here today have a lot of creative ideas. Please share yours in the chat. So if you have tried a cool event tech vendor, or if you have great ideas to make your virtual holiday party more fun this year and more engaging for everyone, please share that in the chat now, so that we can get inspired from each other too. Matt, I have a question. So I know that you are an active user of Hoppier too. Are you guys planning on using us for this year's holiday party?
We are definitely we are actively figuring out how we're going to incorporate Hoppier. Definitely have plans to. Strava has been using Hoppier really since this summer 2021, and really just has filled such a critical role for us in our virtual distributed setup, in terms of just alleviating so much stress and work from both our accounting and finance teams, from our people programming standpoints. It's been such a breeze setting up different events, getting funds into people's hands for different cool activities, whether those are workshops, learning events, connections. So I think definitely when we're planning some sort of camaraderie but get together hour. And I think we will definitely have a Hoppier component to that, just giving people that flexibility to get what they want in terms of like their own care packages, their own favorite hot cocoa for a hot cocoa hour or something like that. But it's really, that's the power of Hoppier for us, is really just giving our employees that power and flexibility to spend how they want to.
That's awesome. Really awesome to hear. And another question to you, Amanda, about these boxes. Like, did you make them yourself, or did you use an external provider to package and send those custom boxes to attendees?
If they do not have alcohol, our team can handle it here. And then if they do have alcohol, because that takes a special license, so we do partner with someone who do that, but it still comes through us. And everything, the kit is very curated, right? I have some people like, well, can you give me some pricing? We really start with, well, how much you want to spend? We literally have people spend 70 all the way up to like 350 plus, right? Because of the items they want to put in it. Like we had a client that wanted to put a waterproof speaker that flow, because that was for our summer engagement, and that speaker itself costs $50, right? And then they want to brand it, but it's a super nice item, right? So it's quality over quantity. But I think for the most part, we always keep in mind, like, we don't want it to be the item where people would take it home and then like throw away, or like give it to their kids to play. Like, it's actually something they'll use and interact with, and that makes the box very purposeful.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So going to the next phase, right? Here we talked about, again, like creative ideas, and you can spend hours, weeks sourcing vendors, looking at Google for creative things or experiences to run at your event. But then comes the hard part. How do you decide on which ideas or which experiences you're actually going to run? And how do you convince people that these are the right things to run, or that these are the right ideas? So the first question is more like in terms of decision-making process. How does that work? How do you actually decide? And the second part is like, who is involved in that decision-making process? And also, how do you get buy-in? So I'd love to know more about this entire process, how it works for you, Matt, at Strava, and for you, Amanda. It's also a very different approach, but I think a very interesting approach where, first of all, you need to convince your clients and then support your clients so that they get buy-in internally. So also a different, but also very interesting approach. So I would start with you, Matt. So how does that all work together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I'll kind of take it piece by piece. So process-wise, kind of at the start, where we always begin when we come to, like, when we think about a new event, a new celebration, something like that internally at Strava, we always start with what's our desired outcome for it, and what would we ideally solve for with this event if perfect conditions existed. And we work backwards from there, really, keeping that original intention in mind, knowing that changes are going to be inevitable, but if we can keep the spirit of our event at its core, we'll be successful. So really from there, I'm just looking through my notes here. So we start really with at Strava, a lot of our events, they have that intention of just celebration and allowing our employees to really express themselves, be themselves, and really connect with each other outside of another Zoom call, just avoiding that Zoom fatigue. So honestly, from there, we get into a lot of the factors that were discussed in the first webinar series that Hoppier put on. So a lot of that is involving the different stakeholders and thinking about the experience and the quality experience of the event we're trying to plan. So these are things like ease of access, availability of a vendor in terms of our timeline and scheduling. Is there additional software that we have to download? What's that user experience like? Is there a learning curve? What do we have to get approved with our legal team and our finance teams? But in terms of that budget process, kind of pivoting from there, for that, we really start with just kind of a ballpark headcount price per person. So basically, if we think about something like a pride celebration or a company virtual picnic or happy hour, we say, to have this very successfully and enjoyable and to meet the needs that we're trying to accomplish, we think $25 per person is going to get the job done. And we extrapolate that out, go to finance, get that approval. And now really, since we brought Hoppier on board, it's been such an easy process for that, because then we just go onto our dashboard and say 25 per person, get everyone's names uploaded, and it's off to the races from there. And we found like that really has been the biggest obstacle remover in terms of like getting money approval, things like that. It just Hoppier has simplified it for us.
In terms of who is involved, you said different stakeholders. Can you specify who exactly is involved?
Yeah, totally. So on any given project that we have, we are going to loop in. It's largely spearheaded by our people team. So this is our executive assistants, myself on people operations, sometimes IT, sometimes talent, and just how we're broadcasting our different events and promoting them, both internally and externally. It's finance, IT, legal, all of these different things, sometimes leadership. It really varies from project to project, but it really starts with our people team, putting people first and having that perspective of, we just want to help people express themselves while they're at Strava and kind of give them that voice.
Thank you so much, Matt. I have a few extra questions for you, but I want to hear about Amanda's perspective first.
So for us, since we're an agency, a lot of time client like Strava, Matt may come and say, hey, we have this budget. But we always start, so very similar. We actually start with their KPIs. Like, what is it that you're trying to achieve? Because sometimes along the way, people get lost. And I was like, let's go back and look at the KPI. And then that way you kind of stay on track, right? And then we actually working on 2022 campaign right now even. And then HR is coming to us say, hey, we want you to help us build this whole campaign for 2022 that has DEI, that has employee engagement. And they're using us as that they want us to help them come up with a budget that they could push to finance. So it's so funny because just yesterday we had this big meeting with their HR, team, and then they say it looks good. They want us to refine certain areas, and then next week they're gonna bring that and then to their finance team to get approved. And once it gets approved, then it goes to a VP. So a lot of time we like to understand what that process is. So for those of you that are on the corporate side, I would say understand what it is that your company values, right? Like tie it back to that. And there's so many statistics right now about employee engagement and so many, right? This is like the big resignation era that's happening. People left and right are resigning. I'm sure your company doesn't want that, right? So a lot of time we put these statistics actually in our proposal to help our clients who are in the people department or in the HR department. There's a statistic that says like highly engaged employees are 87% less likely to leave their companies, or they're 2.5 times more revenue for companies who engage employees versus competitors who are low levels, right? So tie that back into profit, into retention. Those are all keywords that VP level they want to hear, because not just like, oh, it's a good time for the employees, right? But how does that come back in the ecosystem of a company? What does it do for the company, right? Present that value. So that's really where we come from. And then from there, really understanding the demographic, like I mentioned earlier, because that's super important in terms of, we have one client, they're an airsoft company. So they have mostly men. It's like the opposite. So they definitely didn't get the flower arrangement sessions. They did like whiskey tasting. They did, more things that they gravitate towards. So we kind of build out, and we try not to give client too many options. We really already hone it down. It's like, here, Matt, here's 3 options. And usually they love all 3. We're like, your job, you just need to pick one. Or sometimes they actually do a variety, right? Especially if they sign 30 events with us, then they can actually switch. So it makes it really nice because their team member can say, oh, I could pick from these 3 or 6 options. And that's actually what we did for, several of our clients. So that's not just one offering. Because sometimes like different department, IT is so different from marketing. Marketing is so different from, the business banking.
To the audience. So Amanda just talked about the CFO, like the finance team that needs to give the client or like your brand champion or whoever you're talking to approval for the budget. I would love to know for everybody here, who actually has the final say when it comes to deciding on your event ideas or on your event budget. So is it always you, or are there other people involved? So here is a little poll. So if you go to the poll section, I would love to know, when it comes to your holiday party purchases, do you always have the final say, or is it your manager or the purchasing department / CFO? And if it's somebody else, like a lot of people here, I would love to know who that person is. If you can share that in the chat. See, it's quite split, huh? Manager, yeah. It's my manager. Finance department. For the people who said somebody else, can you please share who that person is in the chat? Senior Director Operations. Interesting. So Amanda, a follow-up question on what you said. The first follow-up question is, you said that definitely the finance team or the CFO is involved in getting that final approval. Is there anybody else? I'm thinking, for example, if there is any technology involved, especially for virtual events, does IT have a say in it? Or is there anybody else that you really need to involve early on in the process to make sure you get buy-in from them?
In terms of IT, it's not so much. So we do have a lot of financial and banking clients. So they have super tight firewalls. So at the beginning of pandemic, when we're doing these events, they're like, they just couldn't get in, right? So that's definitely one issue we had to solve with them. But they're usually just more on the technical side, not so much budget. They just want to make sure it's safe. Like, when we're working with financial company, I mean, everything you can use, Gmail, Dropbox, like all the standard stuff, everything is like you just can't use. You may, even Zoom at one point, right? And they literally have to like allow that feature for those 3 hours, and then when your event's over, you shoot an email to the IT department at the finance team, like, okay, we're done. Thank you so much. You could close the firewall now, because there's a lot of financial information. But other than that, IT is not too involved. Usually for us, it's still the people, the HR or marketing, we're working with them. And CFO is really, they just want to make sure like the budget is good, and that's why we kind of like Matt, we always have to break it down like per person cost for the client. So conceptually, because that's always one question they get asked by finance. Well, how much am I spending per person? Right. So we have that number ready for the client.
Awesome, thank you. And Matt, about like these KPIs, are there any success metrics that you are being asked by the management team or by anybody at Strava to kind of justify the cost per person, or how do you measure success at these virtual team events?
Yeah, that's a great question too. In terms of like performance metrics, we don't have any like hard numbers that we necessarily turn to, but things that we kind of will look back on events with just kind of that contemplative eye. There's just kind of a general number of attendees and like who are RSVP'd. Sometimes we'll send out survey forms. We don't like to bog down our staff too much with surveys. We just know that's a can of worms. But where we really see feedback is in our quarterly surveys and check-ins. We ask a lot of questions just about, do you feel engaged at Strava? What's your sense of belonging in terms of your team, the greater, larger part of Team Strava? And really, we look for those sentiments. It's where we actually look more so for the qualitative, I would say, and we look for those feeling aspects, how people describe their experience at Strava with different events, different meetings, things like that. Not so much of like, well, if we spent $50 per person, was it a better event if we spent 75? We don't get too far in the weeds on those types of things.
And about budgeting, do you get a yearly like event budget, or do you have to justify event by event what you're going to spend on?
So we break it. So at the start of every financial year, we kind of get a larger department budget, and then from there, our team has a lot of flexibility in terms of how we distribute those resources for different events. So it's kind of mix or match. It varies, which I think works a lot to our advantage, just in terms of we can gauge interest in what people want to celebrate. We have a lot of different employee resource groups and diversity and affinity groups. So we kind of will brainstorm with those groups throughout the year, what's on their mind, what they feel isn't being represented as much as it could be, things like that. So we do have flexibility in terms of how we control our resources that
awesome, thank you.
Provided.
Amanda, you had mentioned a few metrics. I would love to go deeper on that, and I think I'm going to send a follow-up email to everybody here after the webinar in terms of what they actually mean and maybe some statistics that they can use to go to top management or CFO and say, hey, this is how running those virtual team events can impact employee engagement or employee retention. If you were to define like 3 key employee metrics that matter to these people, people meaning like the people you need to convince to get buy-in, what would these be?
These stats that we used in the past, I winked at my staff real quick, so they were sending it to me very fast. I'm so grateful for them. But these are just some stats like a lot of time we'll put in the proposal, because honestly, it was really for people who are contacting us. They already believe in events and the impact it has. But like kind of like what Matt is saying, a lot of time it's more qualitative, right? It's not a numbers like, yes, we do the client do send out ratings afterwards, but that's a little bit hard. So we do look at, like, the survey always helps, because then they could take that back to the senior leadership and say, hey, look, like people really love this. And this is one of the reasons why they're staying at this company versus like going to Facebook, right? Going from TikTok to Facebook. Like, why TikTok? Why Facebook? Right? You could choose, and these talent that could go anywhere now, right? So why here? And because of these events really bond people, right? And so many times, it's funny because last year when we're doing this, and even this year, people are like, oh, this is a lot more fun than I anticipated. Because they're just thinking, oh, another virtual meeting, right? But when they come here where there's no talks about business and it's just like, let's get connected, let's get re-engaged or engaged, then that really help pull people closer. That connectivity is so important. So like the survey does help, but it's true. Like you don't want to send it out too often because then it's just like a chore, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to share some more statistics about that. Thank you so much for sharing these in the chat. If you haven't seen it, Mada just shared some cool stuff that you can use as great sales arguments for your virtual holiday party. If you give me the right budget, people will stay, will be more engaged, and ideally, you can also show that it has an impact in terms of like company revenue. So at the end of the day, we want to create a super happy workplace, and I think talking with people that are with numbers all the time and using those numbers to then link back to an increase in productivity and at the end of the day an increase in yearly revenue, I think can also put a smiley face to your CFO. Thank you so much. Is there a particular moment or a story where it was extremely hard to convince your CFO or somebody from management, or even that person actually said no, and by using these arguments, you were actually able to turn things around? That's a tough question.
I say yes, because, especially if they're looking at like same banking financial industry, they could say, well, City National Bank is doing this, but we're not. And this is how they're able to retain talent or attract talent, right? Even when we did our own internal culture event, and then my team was building Lego at home, and her roommate walked in, and the roommate literally said, hey, Ellie, aren't you supposed to be at work? And she's like, I am at work. And she's like, no, you're building Lego. It's like, no, this is work. Look, my coworker, my boss is on the screen. And then her roommate was like, where can I sign up to apply for this, for your company, right? I mean, it's not like we play Lego every day, but just kind of infuse that fun, and we do get a lot where even our clients are like, wow, your team is very happy, but I make a lot of effort. I really believe in people, clients, and it trickled down. If your people are happy, meaning your team's happy, then your clients are happy because your people take good care of the clients. If clients are happy, my profits will go up, right? So it trickles down, and that's kind of what I kind of share. And sometimes clients will bring us into like the bigger meetings. So we're almost their tool to help convince if they're not able to do it, right? So we just bring it back, not just like, oh, it's a fun event. Again, tie it to a value, tie it to a ROI.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. I think I was going to summarize what you just said, but somebody just asked me what our decision-making process looks like. I haven't even thought about that for this event, like how things work at Hoppier, but actually a lot of the things that Amanda and Matt shared today really resonate with me. So the first thing that I think you are both doing well, that we are doing well as well, is involving all the right stakeholders in the brainstorming phase. I think that's very, very important, is not working alone for 2, 3, 4 weeks and then presenting the entire plan. This is exactly how it's going to happen. And then you have to pitch the whole thing to people who have no idea what you had planned. So I think involving them in the ideation process in terms of, okay, what kind of budget should we plan this year? What kind of experiences worked last year or could be interesting to test this year? What is the end goal? and asking the right questions to get the ideas. And their meaning for us, it's mainly your CEO or CFO. We have a whole like management team, and I would go there at that meeting and ask them all the tough questions and get them to tell me creative ideas that we could be running this year. And then of course, ideally these are great ideas that I can then implement into our event plan. And then the buying process is so much easier because it was a co-brainstorming session, and it's also the idea. So they're going to say yes to ideas that they have expressed themselves. And so by asking the right question, you can also kind of guide a conversation to where you want the answers to. I mean, you can guide the conversation in terms of getting the right answers that you were expecting. And I think something that we are not doing that I think is super, super key, and going back to what has been said during this conversation, is linking the inputs, meaning the team events, to great outputs, meaning the KPIs. So at the end of the day, I know in HR and in events, we talk a lot about like metrics that are not always linked to revenue, because we are talking about people, we're not talking about sales. But I think when you talk with a CEO and with a CFO, it's so valuable to talk about metrics that they know have a huge impact on making sure the whole company is more productive. And at the end of the day, that it's going to make us more competitive on the market by retaining talent, by making sure people are super engaged, love to work there, which results in treating the customers of that company better as well. So treating your employees means treating your customers well, which means at the end of the funnel, a better, a much better company, and an increase in sales. So I love these two things, meaning involving the key stakeholders early on in the brainstorming phase, and then based on that, you come up with a plan, and you get a budget per person that you link back to outputs, meaning metrics, and then you present that to management. I think that's a very powerful framework. One thing that I don't know if you are both doing is asking employees what they want to do. Is that part of the process in terms of sending like an online survey, for example, to ask them, hey, what do you want to do this year? What did you like last year? And kind of using those insights to convince management?
We definitely take into account kind of like past employee sentiments from events. And what I was going to add to Amanda's last answer was just knowing your audience is super, super crucial in these virtual event plannings, and people really notice what you prioritize with your events. So for us, it's really just like what you said, Amanda, tying it into those core values or to your audience and what they're trying to celebrate. So not trying to overscale it, not trying to over engineer anything is crucial. And yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there. But yeah, just totally just, I would say knowing your audience is definitely probably the most aware thing where you want to start in terms of this whole process.
100%. What about you, Amanda?
As for us, we actually know for a fact some of our clients send out survey to ask, because a lot of corporations are still remote, or some of them are hybrid. So they actually send out a survey like, do you want remote celebration this year? Do you want hybrid? Do you want in person? And then, what did you like? And they're open to like suggestions. I think that's always very healthy, because you don't want to do an event and nobody wants to go to that. Right. So, or maybe you put 3, maybe that's the offering, and you say, which one would you like? And then the one with most obviously is going to get the most engagement. But we like to think that, honestly, keep it simple. Sometimes people really complicate things, especially as event planners. We're like, we have these big dreams, right? But on virtual, if you guys are still doing virtual, I would highly recommend, like, really keep it simple. What I mean by that is, like, don't make it so complicated, right? And don't make it, like, really, the people should just be able to come and enjoy. The less buttons they have to push, the less they have to set up, the more successful your event will be. And that's what we learned from last year. And then really make sure you have an amazing moderator. That's also another tip for you all. When we, that's definitely, like, we vet our moderators so hard because they really make or break our event, right? Can you imagine coming to an event? And I learned, like, you really had to be like Blue Clues if you're like for your moderator. They had to be like, hi, Thomas. Hi, Matt, how is everybody doing today? Versus like, hey, everybody, like, we're going to get started. We're going to do this event. I'm like, oh my God, so boring. And because it's virtual, you have to be that much more animated. Right. So some of our moderator, we actually tell them, like, have you watched a cartoon recently? And if their answer is no, we say, please watch one. And then we give them, like, watch Blue Clues, like, because these people have to engage kids, and kids, like, their attention span is so small. I have 2 little boys myself, and I'm always like, listen to mommy. I'm not here. But, but that's why I say keep it simple, because you'll lose them very fast if you don't do that, and then have an amazing moderator.
True words of wisdom. Yes. Thank you so much. So we are nearing the end of the session. My last question before I show the gift to everybody involved here would be about pre-event excitement, pre-event journey. So, and by the way, you can go to this page that I'm going to share. If Maitri is here, I'm not sure if she's one of the attendees, she can share it, or I will share it by email. But the next event is going to be about how to create pre-event excitement. So, going back to first getting the right ideas and vendors, getting the right budget, and then you can always, like, extend the lifetime, extend the fun of your event by doing some cool stuff before the event day. So I'm curious about if you have planned anything, Matt and Amanda, if you plan anything with your clients, for you, Amanda, or for Strava, Matt, to kind of, get people excited, to tease about this event before the holiday party.
Yes, and this, Krista, I'm going to answer part of your question too here. I saw in the chat of how do I choose my audience. So with Strava, being internally facing, that is kind of just a layup there in terms of my audience for my employees. But within that, it's those different groups of those employee resource groups, the affinity groups that we have, whether it's an all company celebration, we kind of look at that. And then in terms of getting hype and buy-in, my number one recommendation is just communicate, really across different channels, across different forms. Do it in Slack, email, get your leadership to say something at an all-company meeting. Just in this virtual world, so many things can slip through the cracks. So it's just better to over-communicate than under-communicate. And really just kind of hit those selling points of what's going to make it a standout event, whether it's time together, fun and games, something new. Last bit that I'll say is through it all, something that's really helped us at Strava with our planning is really just taking on kind of a mindset of experimentation and iteration, knowing that no one has really done these virtual setups before, and we are learning as we go. And kind of goes back to our people know what they notice what we prioritize, and we're just constantly trying to improve. And I think that is the spirit that everyone should just try to emulate.
Thank you so much, Matt. What about you, Amanda? Anything planned before the event?
I love what Matt said. Definitely communication, right? With so much going on, if you don't, we find that we have to remind people a lot more, right? So we kind of plan that if the client is their first time, or even if it's their third time, fifth time, 12th time, we still say, make sure you send it out. Like, we send reminder to our clients so they know, they remember to send it to their team, because then it's coming up, and we actually recommend them to calendar them. So that's part of it. And in addition to that, if it's a bigger virtual event, then we'll say, hey, why don't you get your internal team, maybe someone like Matt, you could do a welcome video. Or you could say, hey, this is what you can expect when you come to our holiday party this year. You could do a little teaser, but it's all about what you put in the communication, right? If it sounds boring, I don't want to go. If it sounds fun, I'm coming, or maybe I'm coming, or I'll make time for it, right? But literally, we have one of our tech clients, they're like, oh, it seems like your events are so fun. You get high engagement, because most of our events, we get 90% engagement, which is very high. So she's like, what am I doing wrong? And I say, well, send me your communication that you sent to your team and give me the list of the past 5 events you've done. She sent it to me. They were good. They weren't great, right? Because also in the communication, it wasn't exciting. And then the event itself is very standard, right? So it will be like another art and sip, right? Like there's so many of that last year. So you really have to, like Matt said, it's trial and error, right? So you may say, okay, our group doesn't like comedy, or like, but they love magician, right? So from that, then maybe like build up that on that success, and then also another thing, it's like pre-engagement. We also talk about like the kits. Those are great. These are great because it arrives at their doorsteps, and then they kind of start like exploring. We're like, please don't, and it will make sometimes. I love witty comment. I mean, that's kind of a little bit personality for our agency. We're like, please don't eat all the snacks before the event day, Or maybe you say, yes, feel free to explore. We got one snack for you until the event day, something like that. So you can incorporate. And we even prepare things like these. These are what we call emoji signs. So we put them in the box, and on the day of, if everybody has a screen and they're open like how we are today, and then you could, Thomas literally could say, oh, who like, Amanda and Matt's comments, and then people could be like, we do hearts, and then it's just more fun, right? Versus sitting there like, it was great. Like these are just fun. I'm just trying to find opportunities to use them all the time,
This emoji signs are amazing. That's such a great idea. I think just like sending always something physical, to attendees' homes, and of course, like not forgetting about these, but incorporating those physical elements to your virtual experiences is such an amazing idea. And I'm going to link to one thing that I want to do actually for this year, which is creating a virtual happy hour before the holiday party to do 2 things. First of all, we're going to run a gift exchange. So we'll use a website called drawnames.io, where you input all your employees' names, and then it will automatically tell you who you have to send a gift to. And of course, then we have a budget to allocate for everybody to buy a gift and send to that person's home. But also that event will be about creating excitement by already creating the different teams that will compete against each other during the different games that we are going to host during the holiday party. And so one thing that I want to do that you just made me think of, Amanda, is actually sending, each team will have their own colors. And so I want to have something that they can wear with the right team's color. And the goal is really to kind of create this pre-event competition mindset before the event, and playing on that, before the event happens. But definitely something that is so cool is always like when you receive gifts, whether it's digital gifts or actual like physical gifts before the event, is something that can already spread that holiday cheer. I want to be mindful about everybody's time. I have 2 things to say. Well, 3 things. First of all, thank you so much. I have a fly who's attacking me here. But thank you so much, Matt and Amanda. I think one thing is, if attendees have any more questions for you two, how can they reach out to you? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, for me, you can find me on LinkedIn. Feel free to send me a message there.
Awesome.
Kick off the conversation.
Same as well. Yeah.
Awesome. And I want to share this. I'm sending. Give me one sec. Share. Can you let me know when you can see my screen? Do you see a card here?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
So
awesome.
I'm gonna send
Sure do.
everybody who has attended the event today will receive Hoppier's smart digital gift card, and will load the card with $20. So this is 20 USD that you will be able to spend on this list of approved vendors here. We have Airbnb, Amazon, DoorDash, Netflix, IKEA, Grubhub, Skip the Dishes, Starbucks, Uber Eats, even Drizzly if you want to buy alcohol. As you can see, we have allowed all categories, so cafes and restaurants, alcohol stores. So that means that you can actually use this credit card on any of your local restaurants or alcohol stores, because these are actual digital Visa cards. So you can link your card to your Apple Pay or Google Pay and actually physically go to your local shop and use that $20 allowance. And so that's a gift that I'm going to send you by email this afternoon. And I want to say, stop sharing. I hope that you enjoyed this this webinar. I want to thank Matt and Amanda. And one last thing. So Matt is Matt Strava is a really big user of Hoppier, but as we talked about, providing this gifting experiences, or if you want to provide food or drinks to anywhere in the world, Hoppier cards are a pretty good way to do that, because when you send physical boxes to people, you'll usually end up with delay issues, or it's quite hard to ship at many different locations in different countries. With virtual credit cards, you send them in one click. It's instant because it's digital, and you won't have to pay, or your attendees won't have to pay high shipping fees, because they can just use the card and pay at any of the food delivery app, or at any local restaurant, or on Amazon, or wherever wherever they want to purchase. So you can use that to run gift exchanges, or if you want people to buy food and drink during the holiday party, that's a pretty cool way to do that. And we'll give you $50 if you become a customer with Hoppier before the end of this year. So again, thank you so much, Matt and Amanda. That was amazing to have you. I'm gonna ask you, Amanda, to share me some of the stats that I can reshare with attendees. And yeah, thank you so much for being an amazing guest. I learned so much. I hope that the attendees also enjoyed the insights shared. I think the framework that you shared and the ideas to conflict management were super valuable. So thank you again.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.